Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I am Justin Stacy,
Nate Thomas.
Josh Matney.
and tonight we are diving into the movie Beetlejuice. And this was an interesting watch for me just because this literally was the first watch I have seen since the early 90s when I watched it to begin with. This was my second time watching it, I think. Now, I may have watched it multiple times as a kid. I don't remember. I think I watched the animated series more than I watched this. And it's because that would have, I would have been a kid then, and the animated series would have been appealing. But yeah, it was definitely interesting. I didn't remember a whole heck of a lot about this movie. So there's that.
Well, I've seen this about almost every year, and I always, just like the line from the movie, it gets funnier every time I watch it. No, but like I will say, like this time around, like actually really watching it, I noticed like how darker this could have been, and apparently the original script was pretty much a straight horror film, and the new person they got in to kind of help rewrite it toned it down to make it more of a comedy. So like the original was pretty crazy, like, and we can get into that later.
Hot take: you couldn't make it today.
That was the general reaction of what I come out of this movie. You could not make this today.
If it came out today, it would be a hard R, bad language, nudity, and gross out humor, none of which is funny. So it would flop today. I'll say more as we get into it.
That's true. All right. Well, before we open a bottle of pop culture, I want to mention to everyone to please like our content. Give us a subscribe on our YouTube channel.
Right.
Comment for anything you want to let us know about our videos or any suggestions you have. Give us a comment and share it. Share it on your timelines. If you like our content, share it. That would support us greatly.
Even if you don't like our content, share it. It costs you nothing.
Yeah, just share it regardless. It doesn't matter what you like. Just share it. All right. Anyway, sit back, relax, put your feet up as we open a bottle of pop culture.
We're gonna talk about some really cool stuff. With Josh, Nate, and I, we're gonna blow this thing up. We're gonna talk about the movies you love, and if you don't, well, that's just tough. But we're gonna talk about shows that are awesome. You'll say, whoa, when we're talking about Blossom. This will be your one and only stop for everything nerdy in a bottle of pop culture.
All right. So get it. And we're back. So, Nate, you probably need to explain this horrifying mask that's in front of your mic because it has nothing to do with Beetlejuice.
So look, I'm a diehard wrestling fan. I may not watch every week, but I do catch up every week, if that makes sense. 2 nights ago, we're recording this Monday, October 10th. I don't care who knows it. 2 nights ago, WWE Extreme Rules. Bray Wyatt came back. This is my Fiend mask. I've got Raw on as we're talking. I can see it on my tablet. So if I phase out for a while, guess who's on TV? I'm just saying. I wanted to wear this through the podcast, but it's hard to talk through a mask. I got to show it off.
Amen. So Bray Wyatt
Amen, Matt.
Yes. Bray Wyatt. He's probably one of the favorite characters post 2010 that I can think of that just has just a lot of creativity to it. Everybody else is just a normal version of themselves, maybe with a different name. Whereas Bray Wyatt, he reminds me of something that would have come out in the late 90s.
Agreed.
So I just love that, and I hope it sticks this time. I hear that really the reason why he ends up getting released on and off a lot is because it seems like he has a lot of creative ideas, but he's hard to compromise with. And this was coming from from Triple H. I'd seen an interview recently with him, and he said that was kind of the reason why they have an on and off relationship with Bray Wyatt.
We're on the right track now.
He, is kind of hard to compromise with when it comes to creativity. He's got good ideas, but he doesn't want to really, I guess, give them up. So, yeah, I really hope it sticks this time. But anyway, it's enough about wrestling. Let's get into.
I could do that podcast too.
That's right. Let's get into the movie at hand with Beetlejuice, and I did not look up a synopsis simply because I wanted to describe it badly again. I felt like that was a fun thing to do when we did it for Halloween.
Yes.
So let's do that again. To describe this movie badly. I've got one already thought of if you want me to start it off.
You can go first. I have a couple I can spit out.
Okay. Michael Keaton's failed audition for 1989 Batman as the Joker.
Wow. Yeah, that's terrible. I mean, that's a terrible. You did a good job.
Okay, next.
I was thinking a movie's gonna be teenager makes friends in unexpected places. Can't argue with it. It's badly explained.
That's true.
Or couple can't get rid of unwanted house guests.
Yep, that's true as well. Josh, what do you think?
Or reggae jamboree breaks out at the most random time.
Yeah.
Or football team gets lost and ends up in an unknown destination.
Mm-hmm. Can't find the bathroom.
Yeah.
Probably the dumbest ghost that will not read the manual.
Yeah.
That's all you had to do.
They won't read the manual.
So they seek out a future sex offender, probably.
Wow.
Yes, I would agree with that. Okay, so now let's actually dive into the movie.
Yes.
And as I stated before, this is probably my second. This is my first watch as an adult of this movie, and I kept thinking with this, number one's a PG movie, and I'm thinking, how is this a PG movie? It seems beyond the ranks of PG today, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's not.
PG-13 then.
It would be PG-13 if it's the same movie with the current rating system. It would be PG-13 by all regards. Now, as you said, Nate, if they remade this movie, rebooted this movie, it would be a hard R.
Yeah.
That's
Isn't all comedy a hard R today?
It seems
Apparently,
like
comedy means raunchy in 2022, which I'm just sorry, that's not the truth. That's another soapbox for another day. Beetlejuice is only funny situationally. The movie overall is not that funny.
Yeah,
I think that's I kind of agree with that because it took me a long time to really kind of like this movie because it was boring up until Beetlejuice showed up, and then everything else is kind of like.
And he's barely in it.
15 minutes. That's all.
Well, I looked at the unknown facts, and it was 17.1 minutes total of the entire movie, out of an hour and a half movie.
Yeah.
17 minutes of the main character, of what should have been the main character, or what could have been the main character. It didn't have to be, but I felt like you needed more Beetlejuice than that.
Yeah, like growing up, Beetlejuice is sort of the selling point for this movie, but really it's about the two ghosts and the girl.
It's
like
Alec
Beetlejuice is sort of just there.
They have names, but I don't know them.
Lydia is the girl's name. Now, I don't remember the
Adam.
Yeah, was Adam the guy's name?
Yeah, I think because it's almost like Alec, because Alec Baldwin plays the guy, and it's like pretty close to his name.
I did. Lydia.
Yeah, and what's the other one's name? Gena
Davis.
Gena Davis.
Louise, lady from A League of Their Own.
Yeah. Yep.
That's all I know her from.
That was all I knew her from too, but that was definitely one of my favorite movies. So I immediately knew who she was. But yeah, a young Alec Baldwin. I did not realize that's who was in this movie until I was like, oh my gosh, that's who that is.
Like aside from the story not being to me, not Tim Burton's greatest, which he didn't write it, but like he has a great eye for camera stuff. Like he knows how to shoot the camera and give iconic scenes. Like the house if you look at the house from like the wide angles, it shows character. Like that's one thing he really does well with, like having the environments look like they have their own personality. So I mean, as much as like this is one of my least favorite Tim Burton films, I mean, it's visually, I think it still looks really well.
What's your favorite Tim Burton film?
Mine would probably be Edward Scissorhands.
Mine would be Sleepy Hollow.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, that's
Sleepy Hollow.
Because Batman's not a Tim Burton film, even if he directed it. I mean, he directed it, but it's not. It doesn't look like a Tim Burton film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So me and Josh was actually talking about this over dinner the other day, and that was on Tim Burton's films. I'm not confident that I'm a Tim Burton fan. I actually just looked at a list of like his top 10 films or whatever. Most of them I don't like. You know, you got Charlie and Chocolate Factory. Did not like it. You've got a Batman and Batman Returns, which I did like as a kid.
Batman Returns is still my favorite Batman movie ever.
There you go. But I wouldn't consider it heavily a Tim Burton film. You know, it doesn't look or feel like a Tim Burton film, other than it's dark. You know, you've got a dark Gotham, so that's Tim Burton.
The Penguin has a Tim Burton feel.
But that's probably my favorite rendition of the Penguin ever, is that version. Yeah, I really like Danny DeVito as the Penguin.
Probably.
But we've got Tim Burton Corpse Bride, didn't like it. We've got Frankenweenie, didn't like it. We've got wasn't James and Giant Peach Tim Burton?
I don't know. I didn't think it was, but maybe I did enjoy that one. If it is,
well, if it is, I didn't like it.
It was Scissorhands.
I did like that. Mars Attacks, not a huge fan. Alice in Wonderland, didn't like it.
No, because it looked like a Tim Burton movie and it didn't tell the Alice in Wonderland story, which needs no flourishes.
That's I feel like the problem with Tim Burton films is that, and this podcast is quickly becoming into FUD against Tim Burton. I realize that, but it's like you don't concentrate enough on the story.
What's FUD?
It's like it's a crypto term, which is you're spreading FUD. So, and I don't actually know what the acronym means.
Fake news, is that what you're referring to?
You don't know. Fake news, Justin. Fake news.
What does FUD mean? 1 second. Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So maybe that's the wrong term for that, but anyway.
Yeah, see, I wasn't thinking the word fear.
It's not like how I went. Have a question?
All right. But you've got Planet of the Apes, 2001.
Loved it.
You loved it? I didn't.
Loved it. Even the ending, because it set up for a sequel. I loved it. Here's what I didn't love. It was too stinking long by about 20 minutes.
And then you got Dark Shadows.
Nope.
I never saw
anything
that.
Johnny Depp's been in the last 15 years is a Tim Burton movie, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I know that's not exactly accurate, because I don't like Johnny Depp. I don't think he's much of an actor at all.
I liked him in all the Pirates movies.
But Jack Sparrow is a freaky character. Anybody could have played a freaky character.
Yeah, maybe.
He's Willy Wonka. Anybody can play a misfit.
I liked him in Edward Scissorhands.
Same thing. He's a kid he's got scissors for hands. Come on.
What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
Not a Tim Burton movie.
I didn't say. It's a Johnny Depp movie.
Not a Johnny Depp starring role.
That's true. It wasn't the main star.
And he wasn't
I guess.
Johnny Depp yet. I just don't like him. I mean, what I mean is, I don't think he's anything great.
I think he's like good at. I think he has good like vision, but sometimes I feel like the stories aren't that great. I think that can be like. I think that's what makes the. I mean, I know you didn't like any of the animation ones, but I do think the animation ones are a little more better sometimes because they tend to be off-kiltered typically than typical animation styles. They're a little out there, exaggerated, I guess.
They are out there.
Yeah. Because I think that was like the idea of doing Nightmare Before Christmas. It was like I think he described it as either exaggerate your drawings or use your terrible drawing hand to create the characters, something like that.
I'm not a fan of Nightmare Before Christmas either.
This is not what our podcast today is about. I don't get the Nightmare Before Christmas. Is it a Halloween
either.
movie? Is it a Christmas movie? What is it?
I don't know. But yeah, we went down a rabbit hole of Tim Burton here.
If Beetlejuice comes out after 1995, Beetlejuice is played by Johnny Depp.
Oh yeah, that would definitely happen.
Which means that the movie is suddenly all about Beetlejuice, and it won't work.
That's true. You know who they were trying to cast as Beetlejuice before they got Michael Keaton?
I don't remember.
Sammy Davis Jr.
Wow,
That would have been a really weird casting.
Was he still alive in 1988?
Yeah, I guess he was.
I mean, I know he's passed now, but it's been 35 years.
I guess he was.
Wow.
Yeah, that would have been odd.
So in the original script, I was reading about like how they had to go back and do some rewrites, and one of the scenes that kind of they cut and completely got rid of it was when they're having like the exorcism and they're trying to bring Beetlejuice
Yeah, man.
turns into like a rabid squirrel and mutilates one of the characters. Like,
Oh wow.
yeah, there was like another kid apparently, and I think it wound up being one of the kids. He just winds up like it was going to be a hard R script. Like it
That
was.
would've-
Honestly, it kind of sounded more interesting because like I feel like I've seen this like I said almost every year by this point.
Excuse me.
But yeah, like the original script was so dark, and I guess like the guy who originally wrote it kind of looked, I guess he kind of was okay with it now because it did so well financially. But there was so many, like the scene where they kind of go over the bridge and they die. Like it shows them legit drowning, like them like,
Oh wow.
and yeah.
What a way to
So-
die as well. I mean, you basically you tried to save a dog and the dog ended up killing you.
Mhm.
Why
And
I got
really, the
so
only
mad
funny
at it.
stuff from the
Just-
original
just
script
running over.
was probably just Beetlejuice alone. Like all the other stuff, like all the humor was not even there. But that's just my spew on that part.
No, I can buy that. You said it did well at the box office, Josh. They made it for about $15 million, and it earned over $74 million.
Which is
Pretty good for
Yeah.
the 80s. Yeah.
Today there'd be a lot more advertising costs. They'd have a big media campaign. In 1988, they didn't do it that way.
yeah.
So that's a huge rate of return.
Yeah, and
Sorry,
the
I saw that.
longevity of the character, just I mean, it's spawning Broadway plays and just everybody knows Beetlejuice. Whether you watched the movie or not, you know it. It's stuck in our culture.
You're right.
So to have that lasting effect of a movie that I'm sure no one visioned that with this movie.
You'll
so
still
that's
see the black and white striped suit Halloween night.
Yep.
Oh,
It may
yeah.
not be Beetlejuice, but that's what it is.
Yep, that's true. That is very true.
And when we went to Universal for vacation
Yes.
a couple years back, there was like a Beetlejuice character walking around the area. There's like a, taking pictures with people and
Yeah, it's a
You
big
know.
part of their Halloween stuff too.
yeah.
That's true.
So like he's, the most, to me, the most iconic character of one of the Tim Burton films. I mean,
Agreed.
I'm excluding Nightmare because it really is more of he kind of produced that one. He didn't really direct it. So,
Right, that's true. Good point.
so out of like all his sort of directed films, I feel like Beetlejuice is the most, to me, most memorable and probably most, I mean, even though I love Edward Scissorhands more, I think Beetlejuice is a more enjoyable character to watch. So that's why I kind of wish that he was in the film more
Yeah.
than just the 15 minutes that he was in it.
So apparently there is a script for a sequel, and it's been around for a good, almost 10 years now, and they just keep, deprioritizing, greenlighting the movie. But and Tim Burton was involved in making the script, so it's around,
Cool.
and yeah, it'd be interesting if they end up doing it. I would hope that Michael Keaton would come back.
Oh
for it.
yeah. And I did like the little ad lib that Michael Keaton threw in there at the model scene where he's like trying to get him to kind of like trust him so he can do his bio exorcism, and he knocks the tree thing over. Like that whole
Yeah.
bit was ad lib by him. It wasn't scripted.
That's pretty interesting.
I
So
do
they
like
just
Michael Keaton. I'll
Michael
just say,
Keaton, I do
I'm a
too.
big fan of Michael Keaton. No exception.
Yep, in about anything that he does.
mhm.
So I do think it's interesting to note that the gentleman who played Lydia's dad, Jeffrey Jones,
Hmm.
he has had all kinds of legal problems. Some kind of, I don't remember all the details, some kind of sexual assault or battery, don't quote me. But when you watch this back now, knowing that, you go, oh, hold on now. You know how when you look back at controversial figures, excuse me, pardon me. And I thought it was interesting that the gentleman that played Otho, I don't know what Otho was supposed to be job wise, but he was into the occult. At his funeral, I read that, well, okay, he's here. That they played the Banana Boat song at his funeral because he loved being in Beetlejuice so much, which I thought was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Okay, yeah, we don't need any more of that tonight.
That is pretty cool. So one thing that I noticed this watch of it is, even though it's PG, there is some crude humor in this, specifically with Beetlejuice character, and he does jokes that really wouldn't fly in 2022.
Right?
You know,
It wouldn't
especially
fly with the PG rating. We'll just say that.
well, no, it wouldn't fly. But just looking at it through 2022 eyes, like he was really forcing himself on the women in this
Yeah.
movie, and I was like, wow. But no one would have batted an eye in 1988 on that stuff. They just found it funny. So I'm 2022 to not notice those things now.
And that happens. Like sometimes, like comedy just doesn't age well. Sometimes some does, but not all of it. And a lot of my favorite comedy films, they definitely don't age well. One of those being American Pie. Obviously that's not going to age well at all. But
yeah,
that just happens. I think that's just kind of part of comedy because it's very relevant for its time, and it just kind of
topical comedy is time sensitive.
yeah.
What's funny today in 5 years, they'll be like, why did you laugh at that?
Yeah, like that was like my thing with Beetlejuice. Like I kind of wanted more Beetlejuice than because like the name itself is what it is, but like it's kind of Godzilla. You get 15 minutes of almost an hour and a half, a 2-hour movie or whatever, and it's like
that doesn't work in a movie that's supposed to be funny.
Right.
Yeah.
Dramatic films, scary movies can get away with hiding the main character. Look at the Halloween movies. But movies like this, you kind of have to see them to appreciate. Now, I don't know. I cannot figure out how Beetlejuice was popular.
Yep.
It was everywhere in the late 80s. I remember it coming on the Disney Channel, but an edited version.
Yeah.
Which I know it's not. I think the movie rights were bought by Disney to show something like that. But I remember that.
Yeah.
And replay value really helps because I think it's kind of like with Hocus Pocus and all that. Like it just every Halloween, the 13 days of Halloween or whatever, Bill just gets played with the Addams family. So it's just enough replay value to make it bigger and bigger. And I think that it made like almost 3 times its budget, but like, I guess
the Beetlejuice name come from Betelgeuse, which is a star in the Orion constellation. So I read that as a random fact.
Nice.
Yeah.
I thought everybody knew that.
Yeah. How could you not know that, Josh?
So why is it spelled differently in the film? That's something I was going to look up before. Cause like, I really never, I remember looking it up a long time ago, but kind of forgot why, but why is it not like changed in the actual title or in the movie?
I took it to mean it was Old World. That Old World, it was Geuse, and in the New World, which is what America used to be called, folks. Let me give you a history lesson out there. We Americanized all kinds of words. So Geist became juice or something. That's what I've always thought.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to sound really smart because I pulled that out of my butt.
It's going to sound very sophisticated and philosophical.
That is my plan. I like to sound Smarticus.
Smarticus.
So my question is this. When you watch the movie, does it make any sense? You
I
know,
mean,
the couple dies, they become ghosts, they stay in their own home, they have the rules. They go to meet their social worker, caseworker, and everybody's waiting. The football team doesn't know the rules. People in the waiting room have not been obedient, but the lost souls are in the other room. Well, what was Beetlejuice? Was he a person who died? What am I going to? How do you end up becoming a worker in the afterlife, a social worker or whatever it is, a case manager? Don't you deserve to have some peace too? Like, I know it's funny and it's humorous, but the movie really doesn't. It doesn't even follow its own rules,
yeah.
No.
which I know is such an anal thing to say.
I
But it
remember
doesn't.
it. What was the two main characters like? Social worker that Beetlejuice was originally her
Her
They were
client,
partners,
and I guess he
assistant or
just kind of
something
went
like that.
rogue somehow,
Mhm.
and
But then why didn't he go to the room of lost souls, all the ones that were floating up towards the ceiling?
yeah,
So he didn't follow the rules.
we wouldn't have the movie today.
Well, right, but
Yeah.
I
don't-
Now again, I'm looking at it as a 44-year-old and not as a
Yeah.
13-year-old. I'm like, okay, but why? Tell me why. So I know.
Yeah,
It's a lame way to do it.
I don't think they put much thought into any of that. It was just,
Well, and you don't have to.
but
Well,
it makes it hard for us adults to dissect it.
that
honestly
probably
don't
has a lot to
very
do with the
good movie.
rewrite of the script because I think Beetlejuice was supposed to have been a demon, really, a
Mhm.
winged demon, and not just this troublesome character that just likes to
Right.
play pranks or whatever. Like he is pretty
Would you could
wrathful.
I mean, would you consider Beetlejuice the antagonist in this movie, or no?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, you would.
I don't know. I might put the Dietzes, the parents of
Yeah,
Lydia, as
I think
the
the Dietz's family is the antagonist. I'm trying to figure out if he is or not. Like he for the most part he does things on his own behalf. Like he's always self-interested, but he ends up. I mean, he does end up saving the souls of the
does.
married couple.
But he's not an anti-hero.
No, he's not an anti-hero.
He's much more of he might be an anti-villain. You know, like
Yeah.
not really a bad guy, but not really a good guy. He's not a good guy in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Now I think in the animated series he was more of a good guy.
Yeah.
Like him and Lydia, I think they have some kind of relationship in it.
And they go to Hawaii in the cartoon. I remember.
They do, yeah. They had a white shirt. That's right.
I don't remember anything except that. So I don't know.
Yeah. But it is interesting that I guess he would be more or less an antagonist, but he was a very popular antagonist that everybody roots for.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you kind of want to see what's going to do next.
Yeah, like out of all the antagonists, you kind of do root for him still in a way because the Dietzes are just kind of annoying.
Terrible.
They're awful.
Yeah, and
They're woke in the 1980s, which basically means they're terrible.
yeah,
I'm not saying woke is much better today, but in the 1980s, those are the people you would never associate with. That's right. I'll say it right here on the podcast. Send your hate mail to jstacy@bottleofpopculture.com.
Oh. It's interesting. The one part of the story that I found, kind of interesting is the concept of this married couple dying, and then having to spend X amount of years in their home,
Right.
and then when someone moves into their home and starts rearranging things and changing things, then they want to haunt them and scare them out. And I was like, that's kind of explaining what we think of as hauntings or poltergeists. When, because you kind of hear the idea of, well, I moved into a home and I started rearranging things, changing things around. And that's when you started seeing, hauntings. So I feel like that was just a way to explain what hauntings are in the point of view of the ghosts. So I thought that was kind of cool.
honestly, we can talk about another movie that's in the same realm of that. But that'll be for a different podcast.
I know we keep saying stuff and saying we got to do an episode about that. I don't know. I know this is going to be so unpopular. I don't actually believe in ghosts and poltergeists. I can find no evidence. I've never experienced it. I just don't. I don't buy it.
That's
I
I'm
don't
not
either.
consider myself an expert.
I do.
But
I do
I
believe
don't
in such things. Now I've not had any personal firsthand experience, but I know people who I love and trust that has had firsthand experience with either hearing voices or seeing things move or just unexplained things that makes no sense. And so secondhand accounts, I completely believe.
well, you know
So
the sources.
you know the sources, right? So given that, I do believe there is some kind of, spiritual realm that we can't explain. And
Oh, I do too. That's not what I was saying.
what were you saying then?
I don't believe in ghosts and poltergeists. I didn't say anything about the spiritual realm.
But
There are spirits, but I don't. They're not.
so you don't
people
believe
who
that
live on Earth.
the spirits in the spiritual realm can interact with
Absolutely not.
humanity? But yeah, I definitely do. But it's interesting. Like, is there a specific? Would you say there's a religious reason you have for not believing in such things, Nate?
There is. Now, don't get me wrong. If we finish this up tonight and I go to lay down, the doors start slamming. I hear footsteps in the hallway, or I get up tomorrow and all the cabinet doors are open.
That'd be me.
I might
Sorry.
change my tune. But I've lived here for 10 years and none of that stuff has ever happened in this house. I've lived on Earth longer than that, of course. I just don't believe it. That doesn't mean that I don't believe there's demons and principalities, but I don't believe they ever were human.
See,
don't believe that for
I've
instance.
heard interesting interpretations from people who are religious, and Nate, you're obviously religious. You're a pastor. I'm religious too, and
It's not a competition, buddy. We both can be.
but what I'm saying is, I've heard people say that it can't be human spirits because once you die, you go to whatever your judgment's going to be. So such that anything that you might experience has to be demonic. I've heard that from more religious people, and I just can't buy into that. I can't buy that every single thing is a demon. you know?
Well, I don't believe that necessarily, but I'm trying to pull the quote out of my head, so you'll have to forgive me. I didn't research this today, and I don't want to go too far down the Bible train tonight on the podcast. I don't be inappropriate with our listeners that don't want to hear that. I'm not that kind of pastor. If you want to talk about, you know what I mean. I'm not going to beat you over the head with anything. But there's a passage in the New Testament that says we battle not about earthly powers, but principalities. And I'm missing a quote because I haven't read that in a little while. So forgive me, but that's the gist of it.
Mm-hmm.
I do that evil forces, demonic forces, Satan and all that stuff can influence the physical realm. Of course I do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that I believe when humans die, the earthly effects are done.
Okay.
Whether you believe you go ascend or descend or you rest or whatever, this is not the point for that. But once a human takes his or her last breath, their effect on who's left behind is over.
Gotcha.
That's what I believe, and I'm willing to be wrong, but I can't find where I am.
Right.
I'd love to have the conversation.
I would say that the religious reason why I think I believe again because of secondhand stories. It has nothing to do with my religion. I believe because of that, but to explain it through the lens of my religious beliefs,
Excuse me.
I'm open to the idea of purgatory. And I think if you get a notion of purgatory, an idea of purgatory, then you could see why spirits would be trapped, on Earth or whatever. I'll leave it at that. But
That's a fine explanation.
That's the reason why that I'm open to the idea. So,
clearly not tonight, but I wouldn't mind to further discuss. I'm not offended by that. I know you're not either. I know Manny's not.
Mm-hmm.
Healthy discussion, healthy debate, healthy argument. Although I can't imagine the three of us yelling and screaming at each other. Unless we're talking about fantasy football. That's when I deserve to yell and scream about football, daggone fantasy team. Debate and conversation is healthy. With the understanding, because nobody, let me put my pastor hat back on. Nobody has all the answers. The biggest Bible scholar in the world, in which I am nowhere near close and never will be, doesn't have all the answers. So I can tell you what I believe and I can show you what I believe and where, but that doesn't mean it's right. I mean, it doesn't mean I have it all figured out.
Correct.
That's the thing. I don't want to be controversial for the sake of being controversial. Not about this.
Completely agree. No one has all the answers except for those that believe in King James only, and they do.
Right.
And that's a joke. But they
Oh no, I was agreeing. I don't read out of the King James.
Okay, we went down a bunch of rabbit holes tonight, and so this is not under our usual. But
No,
anyway,
we haven't talked about the movie a whole lot.
we have not. We have Tim Burton this thing, and then we went into the spiritual realm and biblical realm.
Right. I gotta say, to this day, when I Beetlejuice, I was 10 years old when Beetlejuice came out. To date myself. So, we saw it. I'm sure I rented it on VHS or whatever. I'd watch it if we had HBO, whatever. To this day, when they're sitting at dinner and the first whatever I'm doing, I'm on the screen. Because I love the way that the Banana Boat song comes and goes and they're dancing. And I love that scene start to finish is an all-time classic in cinema.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it when they do anything at award shows. That scene pops up when they're doing montages.
Well, that whole song is affiliated with Beetlejuice to me. Like whenever that song comes on, I think of Beetlejuice.
Yes.
So like that song is just it's engraved into the Beetlejuice, fandom.
Right. That's I mean, I don't want to argue, but I would argue that's the best scene of the movie. It's the most remembered. The entire cast outside of Michael Keaton is in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just well done. I mean, for whatever that's worth, it's a great scene.
Apparently, the musical elements of the movie, that's something that Tim Burton added. Like after the script was wrote and stuff, he wanted the musical parts, which lends itself to be a musical, to be interpreted as a play.
It doesn't make any sense that the Banana Boat song would be in the middle of this movie. It's out of nowhere. It makes no sense. It doesn't fit the context. And yet, can you imagine another song that would fit? I can't.
Right. Nope.
Of course, I'm also not a filmmaker. So
yeah. And really, like, the one thing about these films, I've noticed, it kind of, and I'll throw them in with the Addams Family, but they always kind of push against what the image of a normal family or community is, normal. And, that was something Tim Burton always does. He always pushes like the weird and kind of trying to show their more human side or trying to show like something that people are either afraid of or something that they are really aware of. And they try to show like, we're all kind of weird, but, because if you look in like in Edward Scissorhands, like how all the houses look perfect, but then you look at Edward and his situation, it's like kind of creepy and just kind of dark and gray.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I'll admit, I like Beetlejuice a whole lot more than I like Edward Scissorhands. That doesn't mean I don't like Edward Scissorhands. It's just not one of my favorites.
Right.
I don't think Beetlejuice is a good movie at all. And I don't think it's a good movie. It doesn't really have a plot or anything. But man, if it's on TV, I'll watch it. It's one that has a soft spot in my heart.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think Beetlejuice is a movie of moments. There's things that it's stuck in your head. And so it doesn't have to have a good plot, doesn't have to have a good story. It's just there's scenes that will always stick in your head from Beetlejuice. It's showtime,
Right.
And that's the point, I guess, of Beetlejuice. And I'm okay with that. Like, I definitely come out of this second watch saying Beetlejuice is not a good movie. Like, I did not really enjoy. This wasn't a great movie at all. But there's still things about it that I liked. And it's mostly the one-liners, some of the back and forth with the characters, the songs, the Beetlejuice theme. I love it.
Yes. Danny Elfman, right?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Danny Elfman wrote the Beetlejuice and the Batman theme back-to-back years.
You
Done.
can
Hall of Fame, baby.
Yeah.
And the Simpsons.
There was a Hall of Fame for composers.
On the Simpsons too. Wow.
That alone.
So yeah.
I mean, I watch this movie, like I said, almost every Halloween.
Sure.
And it's just, to me, if it wasn't for Michael Keaton, I couldn't see myself going back to this, because I feel like Michael Keaton really elevates this movie a little more on the entertainment value.
That's true. That's fair. And I mean, this was pre-Batman. I mean, this came out 1 year
Yeah.
before Batman.
Imagine being Michael Keaton's agent, and he does Beetlejuice, and he's a comedic actor, and then taking him to Warner Brothers, and we'd like you to see him for Batman. They're going to say, I don't think so. This is not Adam West era. And suddenly he's got these two iconic characters back to back years. If Beetlejuice doesn't come out first, they can't afford him. If Batman comes out first, he's unaffordable for Beetlejuice, for whatever that's worth.
And
That's
you know,
true.
for the television show and like even the sequel coming out whenever it comes out, like they know that Beetlejuice had to be heavily involved in whatever. Because, like I said, in the movie, he's only in it for like 15 minutes because you're focusing on the two main characters and the girl. But I mean, Beetlejuice just takes the show for what little time he's there. He
Yes, he
really
does.
just takes it away from everybody.
Yeah. So the
I'm
one part,
skeptical a sequel will come out.
I don't think it will. I
I
think
mean, it's
they're
been
gonna wait
35
too
years
long.
next year. That's a
Mhm.
long time.
Yeah. I could see them maybe doing a reboot or a prequel or something. But I just don't think you'll get a sequel.
Yeah.
And maybe they shouldn't touch it. I don't know. So the one thing about the movie that I felt was not necessary and maybe even a little, and again, this is with 2022 eyes, just a little insensitive, was Lydia's character being suicidal. The way they portrayed it, it was they almost tried to make it comedic, and I felt like this is not anything you really need in this movie. You didn't need her to. I mean, because portraying a teenager being suicidal is a serious thing, so it's probably not something you should have in a comedy.
That wouldn't be in it today. Now, 1988, or I guess 87 when it was filmed, you didn't think a thing about it, I'm sure.
Right, exactly. It wasn't in the thought, and I haven't looked at the data, but I don't know how many teen suicides you had in the 80s. Probably not as many as now. I'm sure it's exploded in 2022. So I just felt like that type of thing was insensitive and didn't age well.
I think that's more it. It doesn't age well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the something I never caught before until really like the last few watches. How they say what character was it that said like people who commit suicide become servants to the other world or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and one of the social worker secretaries, well, that's what happened to her. She died from her little accident.
Oh yeah,
that was that was something I never really like paid attention to because I don't know why I never really focused on it because I guess it wasn't Beetlejuice.
that's a good point. Did they explain why? I probably didn't. They didn't explain why on anything, but did they hint at all as to why if you commit suicide you instantly become a servant?
Nah, I mean I think it's just one of those. So. It was sort of just hint whoever that character that made the joke, that was sort of the explanation, I guess. And then when it actually showed it happen, like being a thing, it just it never really dived that deep into why it does. Which there's not a whole lot. The logic in these films right here aren't really something you want to dive too deep into.
No, you're not going to get good explanations because they didn't think about it.
And sometimes that's okay because you don't really need. I mean, for some films you can kind of throw away a little bit of logic, but sometimes you kind of need a little bit to keep the story kind of making sense to some degree.
Well, and saying that Beetlejuice is not a great film does not mean it's not a fun movie.
Right.
I mean, we've talked about several movies that we've enjoyed but haven't been great. And great movies doesn't mean you can't have a good time. So I want to make sure that we're not just, this movie wasn't worth it. Look, it's 91 minutes long. It's worth your time.
Yeah, it's worth a watch for sure.
All in agreement, Michael Keaton steals the show.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Michael Keaton is just one of my favorite actors all around.
I can't think of any movie he's been in that I haven't liked. A movie that I would assume everybody's watched here is Jack Frost.
Yeah, love it.
I love it. Love it. Great movie.
Both versions.
I like the scene where he comes up through the bathtub and kills the girl. That's another Jack Frost movie. There's one where Jack Frost is a serial killer. Turns into a snowman, no joke. And I'm not sure that actually happens, but I remember that.
I love that movie.
The one with his son, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
wants to stay
he
close to
dies
his
in a
son,
car
yeah.
crash or something. Then his spirit goes into like the snowman or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
It's a
right.
great movie.
A fun movie.
And then he becomes a serial killer and attacks the girl.
Right.
Oh, good stuff.
Well, I'm
All
going to
right,
go back and watch some of his filmography.
Yeah, I agree. He would be a good binge watch. All right. Do we have anything else we want to touch on Beetlejuice? We've been all over the place tonight.
I
Yeah.
give it a thumbs up for entertainment.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely
it's
a
worth
fun
watching.
watch.
I don't give it a thumbs up for story or groundbreaking technology or anything, but it's a thumbs up, and nostalgia plays a part in that for me.
Oh yeah.
That's
I think
true.
for me, like trying to analyze this movie a little more deep, I realized how much like like I said, and I've already quoted this before, like Beetlejuice needed more screen time, in my
Yeah.
opinion, because the other
100%.
characters just did not entertain me as much as Michael Keaton's character, or really, heck, I'd be okay if they'd done more stuff in the afterlife or the purgatory, because like all those cool creature effects and stuff,
I'd
I
like to
enjoyed
see
that.
that.
Yeah.
And that's got to
Well-
be Stan Winston.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fact that
I believe
it was,
so.
I think the fact that it was supposed to be a comedy, but it only felt like a comedy when Beetlejuice was involved.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
that's
was-
fair.
That's a problem with the movie. There should have been way more Beetlejuice, and then it would have been way more funny, and then it would feel like a comedy, because just watching the complete movie, it didn't feel totally like a comedy. It felt like it kind of wants to be serious to a point, and then just go off the rails and be weird. And
Yeah.
with Beetlejuice, but which is funny, and when they get in the spirit realm, it's weird, and you could say like the football player's not know where the bathroom is. That's kind of funny, But and calling the lady coach, that was kind of funny too.
That was slick. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just needed to be more comedic if
Yeah.
if they wanted it to be a good movie.
And I don't think Catherine O'Hara is a bad actress. I mean, she does well with what type of character she usually typically plays.
She's the mom
with.
in Home Alone.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
She's a
like,
terrible parent in everything she's in.
yeah,
great
but
casting.
like, she can be really funny, but for some reason, just kind of like the adults, and I just didn't find them as funny. And like you said, Justin, it's only funny when Beetlejuice shows up.
I
Mhm.
agree.
So, and I think that's the screenwriter went through so many different versions that I guess that's what we got out of that, because it was
Right.
a lot more of a serious script than a comedy. Honestly, like I said, like there was hardly no comedy in it, if I can remember correctly.
Mhm. That's
I
fair.
agree.
All right, good stuff. Well, let's talk about what we are going to dive into next week. This will be our, I guess, maybe a mid-season finale. Mid-season break. Not really a finale, but a break, because we're going to have one more Halloween episode, and then we'll have a week off, and then we will dive into the next holidays, on the list. But
Just
Election
give us
day.
that. That's the benefit
Election.
package.
election
The
day.
American president.
Yeah. But so yeah, our next Halloween movie is going to be a favorite of mine, and I think Josh, is this a favorite of yours for Halloween? I know it is. Lisa, Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like a huge fan of it, but I have seen it to death to
And-
where it's all here. I don't need
Right.
to like go back and rewatch it.
So Hocus Pocus and Hocus Pocus 2. So both of the movies we're going to cover, since Pocus 2 just came out a couple weeks ago.
I have.
We're gonna cover
never
both of them.
Seen Hocus Pocus.
Well, you have two movies to watch.
Well, I mean, I'll
And-
watch them both. I've watched everything we were supposed to watch. I've never gotten around to watching Hocus Pocus. How's that possible?
I don't know.
I mean, I definitely would say if I had to make a list of like Halloween kind of like non-horror, hardcore horror films, like family Halloween themes, that would be on the list, because it is entertaining to watch.
Sure.
Like yeah.
It is. I would consider it a family Halloween movie. Although based on social media recently, it doesn't appear that it's family Halloween. But we'll get into that when we talk about it next week, because that's
Yeah.
actually a talking point I want to.
I
to get
hate
into.
social media for that very reason, for that kind of
Mhm.
nonsense.
Because, yeah. Yeah. Agreed. Well, let's go ahead and dive into our closing quotes for the movie. Beetlejuice.
What are you doing?
Beetlejuice.
Hold on a second now.
Stop it.
Hold
Stop
on a
that.
second.
Don't do that.
Beetle.
Whoa, hey,
Whoa, hey,
whoa,
yo,
whoa.
yo, yo.
Okay. I won't say it. I won't say it.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, don't say.
Beetlejuice.
It's showtime. Hi, everybody.
Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. We hope that we were able to entertain you at least for a spell. If you see value in our craziness and want to continue supporting us, please follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos, and share our content with someone you may know. Also, let us know how we're doing. Make suggestions for the podcast. Leave us a comment. Heck, send us an email. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on the Bottle of Pop Culture podcast.